on Now See This. When traffic ends up on thin ice, a trooper gets cold-cocked. In this amusement park, the rides aren't so amusing. And in the hard-hitting world of crash tests, this guy is no dummy. A woman gets dunked. A skydiver gets thumped. And a civilian's car gets junked.
Look at that!
Think you've seen it all? Now see this. On the mighty Mohawk River in Glenville, New York, a killer patiently waits. It lurks at the base of Lock Number 9. A swirling undercurrent so deadly that rescue workers call it the drowning machine.
You can get caught in there. I've heard stories of people dropping in 55-gallon drums and not seeing them for 2 days. They'll stay in there in turns. It's like getting thrown through a washing machine with rocks.
And right now, 3 adults and 3 children desperately cling to survival on the edge of the roiling abyss. Minutes ago, fisherman Bob Halfer and his friend Julie Curran got too close to the churning waters. From another craft downriver, Gary Davis saw Halfer's boat capsize and knew he had to do something, even though his own 2 boys and his family friend were on board with him.
When I first saw their boat turn over, I said to the kids, if we don't get up there and help these people, they're gonna die. And I never gave it a second thought.
The first boat went in, second boat came to assist them, and the same thing happened. They got too close, the undertow pulled them in.
Everybody but Gary Davis was able to scramble to a nearby ledge. The response from local rescue teams is immediate and massive. Above the lock, one group has sent down ropes to anchor the victims, while rescue boats approach cautiously. But just getting a craft close could be fatal to the rescuers. They know too well that personnel have been killed simply training to do this type of rescue. The crew finds a narrow opening in the massive cascade. They pass a rope and flotation device up to Robert Halfer. He quickly secures Julie Curran, who grows more delirious by the second from exposure to the 50-degree water. The crew yells at the terrified woman to jump, and she tumbles into the rescue raft. But she's still tethered to the railing above. As her rescuers desperately try to unhook her line, the boat's pilot suddenly finds himself anchored by her weight. The craft is pulled back toward the relentless flow, and the pilot must gun the throttle to escape. What happens next is terrifying. The boat starts to leave, but Julie Curran won't be on it. Her lifeline snaps, and she disappears into the drowning machine.
They started taking on water. They had to get out of there at that point. And the other rope did not get released from her, and she got dragged back out of the boat as they got out.
The rescuers desperately search the water for signs of life. Robert Halfer looks on in shock and disbelief. Every passing second his girlfriend spends under the water seems to confirm his worst fears. Suddenly, one crew member of another rescue craft grabs the end of Julie's rope.
We heard all this yelling, and the one voice that I heard up above said, "Look at me," and then they were pointing to where her rope was, and I looked down and there was her rope, and we grabbed it.
They immediately start towing with their boat, but because of the crushing grip of the current, they're afraid of what they might actually pull from the water.
We weren't sure if there was going to be a whole her.
Unbelievably, Julie reappears in one piece. After being submerged in the clutches of the raging waters for over 30 seconds. She's pulled away from the danger and then whisked to shore, where she's bundled in warm blankets to raise her body's core temperature. The rescuers quickly return to the lock for Robert Halfer. As the boys look on, he takes the flotation device from the pole and slips it on. But boarding this rescue craft is no longer an option. He'll have to jump into these frigid waters and let the crew tow him out. He takes the plunge. and immediately gets a face full of water as he's dragged over the top of this deadly swirl. Finally, he's in the clear, and he'll soon be safe and warm. But still, the fate of an entire family and their friend is at stake. Gary Davis, the most exposed of the remaining victims, will be rescued next. He also takes the watery road to safety. But when he reaches dry land, he refuses to be taken to the hospital until he knows his boys are safe. Their rescue will be just as risky. Rather than dragging them through the dangerous waters, it's decided that they're small enough to be hoisted up through the lock itself. 2 levels of rescuers work to set up an elaborate hauling system. But getting a rescuer all the way down to the boys' level won't be easy.
Being the access was so small there, we had a difficult time setting up the rigging.
A rescuer in a harness is finally able to rappel down to the kids. He carefully secures the Davis boys' 12-year-old friend, A.J. Jaros. Rescue craft hover nearby, because if another line suddenly snaps, both child and rescuer could plummet into the fearsome waters.
He tied the snatch harness around him, tied him into his own system, and we changed our rigging system from a lowering system to a hauling system.
AJ finally squeezes through the narrow opening onto the catwalk above. As he's escorted away, the boy is visibly weak from his ordeal. The Davis brothers are next. 12-year-old Justin is lifted to safety, followed moments later by 10-year-old Ryan. Gary Davis's family is still intact.
My kids that day made me so proud. They kept their heads and they didn't panic.
We all held our heads up together high and we came through this thing together.
Thanks to the coordinated efforts of 75 rescue personnel, no victims suffered more than the minor effects of hypothermia. Incredibly, it all began when Rob Halfer was lured to the lock by the promise of bigger fish. Without even a life jacket on, he ventured past the warning buoys and ended up putting 6 lives at risk. Ironically, his pursuit of prey made him vulnerable to a monster that he and many others never even knew existed: the drowning machine. In Chicago, Illinois, an invisible menace has crippled the only way in or out of town for thousands of people. It's the deadly winter chameleon known as black ice. The phenomenon has stealthily turned the city's expressways into a demolition derby.
To see cars just coming and skidding and sliding and skidding and sliding, it was just like being on an ice rink somewhere.
Look out! Oh! I'm the Kennedy at Armitage. I don't have much help for you.
Local news stringer Brad Bartley has been dispatched to cover the unfolding events. What was supposed to be a quick blurb during the weather report has become an evening's feature scoop.
That had been the story of the night. There'd be one crash, then there'd be another crash, and another crash. Most of the drivers on the road that night had no idea it was ice. They just thought it was a wet road.
It doesn't take Bartley long to find one of the evening's accident victims.
I was driving on the expressway. I bounced off the wall maybe twice.
The stringer keeps the camera rolling as a state trooper pulls in behind Stephen Tate's wrecked vehicle.
I pointed the camera into the distance and I saw a wall of traffic coming. All 4 lanes, a bus, and I knew that there was a potential for a problem because all this traffic would somehow have to slow down and merge over to get out of the way.
Bartley is sensing trouble for the trooper. He has no idea just how bad it's about to get. He quickly radios for an ambulance.
Major accident. Call EMS immediately, Ken. Immediate EMS.
I was shooting from up top on the bridge. You can see on the tape when the driver attempts to hit the brakes, he actually starts to slide. And because of the tremendous ice in the left lane that night, he slid right into the trooper, didn't even slow down a bit.
Bartley rushes down to the expressway to check on the victims. Emergency workers soon surround the officer's totaled cruiser.
The trooper, to my surprise, was awake. He knew he'd been struck. He definitely had injuries. He was bleeding a little bit.
The officer is loaded onto an ambulance, but thankfully, his injuries are not severe. As for the driver of the SUV, he is remarkably unharmed, but he's also in serious trouble. Turns out the ice wasn't the only contributing factor to his crash.
He ended up getting charged with DUI.
As if the conditions weren't hazardous enough, the man had actually been drinking before heading out on the roads. He's lucky he's not facing charges of manslaughter against the trooper. And probably nobody is happier about that than Stephen Tate, the man the officer initially stopped to protect.
If he hadn't been there, I probably, I could be dead. I'm just glad I'm alive right now, and I'm glad he's alive too.
After the accident scene is cleared, city officials make the decision to close off this section of the expressway. But the damage is already done. In all, Chicago saw 45 wrecks occur on its freeways this evening. Brad Bartley, the Chicago news stringer, got some of the most intense footage of his career.
Look out!
But he's thankful it didn't cost anyone the ultimate price.
After you get something on tape like that, there's that initial excitement of, wow, I actually caught this and captured this on camera. But then instantly it's that realization that, yeah, this is great tape to have, but did somebody get killed for it? God, I hope not. Thankfully, nobody did.
For Bob Felt, it's just another day at the office. Over the course of his career, the skydiving instructor has had over 1,500 successful jumps. But the true measure of his abilities is that he's also had over 1,500 successful landings. Bob's knowledge of skydiving spans more than a decade. And that experience should come in handy when his friend's aerial acrobatics team needs a helping hand.
I was asked by a 16-way group to do some video for them. So I was just going to put on my belly cam and fly pretty close to the formation and film what they were doing and their levels and get an idea of what they were doing wrong.
Bob steps off the plane. With his stomach camera aimed up at his chest, he falls in with the group. The footage he's shooting will be helpful in fixing the team's mistakes. But today, Bob's the one who's going to make the error of a lifetime. The first leg of the jump goes smoothly. Bob and his colleagues maneuver themselves into position at speeds approaching terminal velocity.
We were doing the regular jump and I filmed the formation.
These skydivers have less than 45 seconds to fall into formation, execute the stunt, disband, and open their parachutes. Almost before they realize it, their time is up.
At break-off time, you turn 180 degrees from the center of the formation, and then I open my chute.
Bob pulls his ripcord, and the main chute is released. But the lines tangle.
My chute started to open normally, and then it spun up like a top and gave me severe line twists.
He has only two options. Either cut away from the chute and use his reserve, or try to straighten out the line. The veteran decides to right himself, but loses track of a critical bit of information, his altitude.
Finally, I looked at my altimeter. It was 1,100 feet. I said, I'm out of here.
10 seconds before impact, he cuts away from his chute, but there's a problem.
Then I went to my reserve handle, and my harness had shifted, so my reserve handle wasn't where it was before, and I pulled it, but I pulled air. So I had to go back, pull my reserve handle again.
Just 3 seconds from impact, the reserve starts unfolding.
After I landed, I checked out my body, and it was just like, whew, did that really happen? Did I survive?
But not only has Bob survived, he stands up, literally unscathed.
bunch of mud all over me, ripped my jumpsuit, scratched my helmet a little bit, but walked away.
It took only 20 seconds for this entire sequence to unfold. And as the seconds slipped away, so did Bob's attention to the fundamental rules of skydiving. After watching this video, he realized that he had tried for too long to salvage a grim situation.
I mean, I made some mistakes. I made 3 or 4 mistakes that I shouldn't have made because I screwed around with the canopy, because I had gloves on, because I lost altitude awareness. I made the situation a lot worse and left myself 0 room for error.
Fortunately, the canopy slowed him down just enough to make it through this hairy situation without hurting a hair on his head. Even the youngest of us feels the lure of thrill rides. And the kite flyer, featured at the California State Fair, is designed specifically as an adrenaline rush for kids. As children lie prone, the ride is supposed to give them the illusion of flying, but it's about to become one mother's descent into terror.
I decided to take my children to the fair to have a fun day.
As a college student also juggling a full-time job and 2 kids, days like this are rare for Jennifer. She happily watches her 3-year-old son Damari as her friend Faye puts him on the ride. She has no reason to believe anything will go wrong.
We measured Damari to make sure that they met the actual 36-inch requirement. Damari was a little bit taller than the side, so he was fine.
The 3-year-old is harnessed in, and with a push of the button, the kite flyer takes off.
Hey, there they go. Oh, they're just gonna slip right
Before long, the ride is up to speed. Damari is in the red car while Jennifer looks on. As far as she knows, everything is as it should be.
I was outside of the gate and he was up. It goes up and around and spins you around. So basically like you're flying.
But as the kite flyer gains momentum, Jennifer notices something is wrong. Damari is starting to slip off the back. By the time ride operators see it, it's too late. The toddler can't hold on.
You know, I was screaming for him and screaming to stop the ride. My son's falling off, stop the ride.
As Damari's feet start to dangle, Jennifer's screams are swallowed up by the crowd.
I felt helpless. I could not get to him quick enough. I didn't know what to do.
One of the workers tries to catch the boy, but he hits the concrete. Mom comes running.
My heart felt like it was at the bottom of my stomach.
The kite flyer was supposed to give Damari the sensation of flight, but never like this. The boy suffers a badly bruised tailbone and scrapes on his head and arms. But it turns out he shouldn't have been allowed on the ride in the first place. The posted 36-inch height requirement was incorrect.
I received a call from the manufacturer saying that the actual height requirement should have been 42 inches.
There is an ongoing investigation about Damari's accident. But for now, an emotional Jennifer Jones is just thankful to have her son alive.
You know, I've seen things like this before on television, but to actually go through this, at the thought of losing him, it scares me to death. I couldn't imagine my life without him.
There's only one way to find out how safe a car truly is. Smash the living daylights out of it. Crash testing helps manufacturers build better cars. And helps police investigate traffic accidents. And where would we be without the noble crash test dummy? A high-tech instrument of plastic and steel used as a substitute for the human body. Except for one unusual case. Meet Rusty Haight. He's known as the human crash test dummy.
I've been in 718 crashes, 44 airbag deployments, and the sum total of my injuries are, permanent injuries, are one little scar from an airbag here and one little scar from a car seat. Everything else has just been bumps and bruises.
Rusty is director of the Collision Safety Institute, an independent accident research facility in San Diego, California.
My occupation would be to teach police and engineers how to investigate traffic crashes, car wrecks. Essentially, it's an effort to make better crash investigators, better crash analysts.
Part of Rusty's job is to climb into these cars and subject himself to steel-crunching fender benders, bumper-bashing rear-enders, and glass-shattering broadsides. All in the name of improving traffic safety.
We have liftoff!
But what can a human subject show crash investigators and police that a dummy couldn't? You'd be surprised.
But the reddening right here is from where the bag opened. I kept my hand on the steering wheel, where the bag opened. So when you guys are out on the street working as police, right? And you drive up and the drunk guy's walking around, hey, the other guy was driving, the dead guy, and he's got marks like that on his arm. Newsflash, he was driving, because the passenger won't be holding onto a steering wheel, right?
Yet for Rusty, it's really not as dangerous as it looks.
Shall we?
You see, unlike your common variety accident, every crash Rusty and his colleagues get into is planned out to the smallest detail.
I have confidence in what my colleagues and I plan when we plan one of these.
Okay, we're cruising in. We should hit 42K.
We go into this eyes wide open. We know exactly what the risks are, as best we can identify them, and we take precautions.
One precaution Rusty often takes is wearing a thick rubber mask. It might look like a gag, but there's a serious reason behind it.
The first time I wore the mask, it was really to keep glass out of my face.
Don't try this at home, kids. This isn't a demolition derby.
People should understand that this isn't, some wild stunt thing going on. This is meaningful research in terms of we teach people how to better investigate crashes. Through that, we can improve traffic safety generally.
So next time you get into your car, make sure you buckle your seatbelt. And as you fly off to the daily grind, think of Rusty Haight, a guy who takes a lot of lumps to make our streets a little safer. It's another high-speed chase through the high-speed chase capital of the world, Los Angeles, California. Hundreds of them weave through this vast metropolitan area every year. By now, the cops have it down to a science.
He's now in the center divider. That's not even a lane there. And then it looks like he hit the center divider.
Officers fall in behind a pickup truck that flees a routine traffic stop. Within moments, the chase reaches triple-digit speeds. Ground units drop back to take the pressure off and hopefully slow down the suspect. But this driver's already spooked.
Oh! This has gotten to be a very serious situation.
Police stay cautious, playing this pursuit by the numbers. But when the suspect gets into heavier traffic, he soon complicates things.
Look at that! Oh! He did hit sparks there, a car spinning wildly there on the freeway. He hit a vehicle, but he keeps going. He is now wanted for assault with a deadly weapon.
The driver swerves hard, ramming a slow-moving car and sending it spinning across 3 lanes of traffic into the center divider. But the damage was not one-sided. Within seconds, the truck's back right tire blows apart. Sparks fly as the pickup runs on an empty rim. Police can't afford to wait any longer. As more and more highway patrol units converge, the suspect decides to ditch the freeway and try his luck on surface streets. But cops continue to close in on his tail. The suspect panics.
And it looks like he's going to come back this way. Looks like, no. And he lost control just as we were talking about that. And he's still spinning, and he's still going.
Barely able to control his vehicle, the suspect heads for what is probably a familiar neighborhood.
And there's cross traffic. He goes right through. He had a red light, didn't even slow down.
Low on gas and even lower on luck, the suspect finally decides to let his feet do the running.
Oh, he's on the curb. He's on the curb and he's in front of somebody's front lawn there. And let's see if he hits. No, he doesn't. Okay, suspect gets out now. He's on foot, hops the fence there, and we'll see what happens. CHP is right behind him there. Now they've got the helicopter, the night sun, right over him.
As the dragnet closes around him, the suspect disappears into a large apartment complex. But here, the suspect's luck suddenly turns. The heavy tree cover is the perfect place to disappear. It makes spotting him from the air impossible. The cops on the ground quickly form a perimeter around the complex. But despite the efforts of more than a dozen patrol units and 2 police helicopters, the cops are unable to locate their man. The suspect has simply vanished. This driver may have made some huge mistakes.
Look at that! Oh!
And the police may have had him right where they wanted him. But for all the officers' experience with high-speed pursuits, this chase has added up to nothing. This suspect was the 1 in a million that got away.